What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Life Insurance Telesales Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Nitafan, and we have a super special treat coming in from France, Mr. Jeff Root. Thanks for coming in here, man.
Yeah, bonjour everybody.
So you guys are absolutely crushing. Obviously, you're doing a bunch of different things. What's cool is you guys are seems like consistently on the cutting edge of the final expense telesales side, or just the life insurance telesales side specifically. You obviously started Digital BGA. Talk a little bit about why you actually like started in the virtual space, or how you even got like into that.
Yeah, so back in what was it? Probably 2008 or 2009, I joined a location independent entrepreneur community. And I decided from there, I'd fly out to see these guys and gals in Bangkok, Thailand, right? And
Yeah.
they travel around the world starting their businesses and I was selling life insurance over the phone. And that's what kind of made me think, wow, this is really doable.
Yeah.
This is where the market is going. And yeah, and so since then I've just been traveling around selling life insurance and started Digital BGA in 2016.
Yeah. I'm curious for myself personally, because I actually went on like an 8 month adventure all around traveling different places, selling life insurance, which is awesome. How'd you even balance like, because for me it was tough and challenging, like balancing being in a new place, a new environment, having to balance like getting life in order, but then also continuing to keep the mindset of like selling essentially. And it was like tough balance. So I actually moved back to Arizona, but like how do you balance those two different things? Obviously, the life part, enjoying that, but then also like really going hard in business.
Yeah, I mean, just like anything in life, you need good boundaries, right? So when we were
Yeah.
like traveling, like if we go to Europe for 3 months, the timetables, the time zones are flipped. So I put the kids and my wife, they'd be in one room, and I'd make sure I get a two-room Airbnb, and I'd make my dials
Yeah.
from 9 p.m. till the middle of the night. But then when I'm working just remotely from home, just that balance and those boundaries are the most critical thing that you really just need to set with the most important people in your life and just for yourself in general to make sure you are just within those boundaries so you can really, really get traction.
Yeah, that's good, man. I appreciate that. So you obviously like sold insurance for a while. I'm curious your thoughts, as you have an agency doing really well now. Um, when's the right time to start actually building an agency for like an independent agent? Like, when's the right time to actually start bringing other people on for, what would you say?
So, yeah, I mean, the default answer most people would say is, when you start seeing success and you can share your success and train on that. But to me, this business, once you figure out that this is simply a math problem and you treat it as such, like that's all it is, you know? And it's in it and you put those agents, you get your first agent, whatever it is, LOA or just an override agent, and you put those metrics together and you do the math problem and you are real with your numbers. And at that point, if the numbers are working for you and they can keep working, like that's when you realize, like, okay, it's not just about buying leads and seeing what you can profit every month, right? It's
Yeah.
about figuring out this math problem and what metrics are key and driving those metrics. Once you figure that piece out, you're ready to build an agency, in my opinion.
Okay, so once you kind of understand the numbers and you can kind of work those to see better results, that makes sense. So, how do you like? I think a lot of the audience that I have is trying to avoid. They want to build an agency. They just want to avoid like the MLM style like model.
Yeah.
Um, how do you balance the two in terms of like being in a really high growth, like oriented stage to where you're really like, because recruiting is essential. All the top companies are like, you have to recruit to be like huge, essentially, and or not huge, but just like have a really good organization. But how do you balance the two between recruiting hard and not being an MLM compared to like just kind of throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks? Like, what would you say?
Yeah, so I mean, you really have to be picky. You really have to filter. Um, we have an ideal agent that we know that does well, and you want somebody with obviously good work ethic, and that's hard to recruit for. You can't just everybody's going to tell you they're going to work their tail off, but most of the time that doesn't come to fruition. As most
Yeah.
recruiters know that. So
How do you vet
the
for that, would you say?
yeah. So, I mean, we have our heuristics that we kind of look for when we
Uh-huh.
when we speak with agents. And so just for some backstory here, we have call centers. So it's in person, like in office, brick and mortar call centers, right? So we have two of
Yeah.
them. So I'm not talking remotely here, right? So we get to see these people eye to eye and have different sorts of conversations. So, and we recruit heavily on Indeed and job boards and events and things like that. So and so it's a little bit different. But when we're looking at somebody eye to eye, when we see a resume, for example, and when most recruiters MLM style, you're not seeing resumes, you're just talking to people and you're just bringing people in, right?
Yeah.
So you can see if somebody's jumping from job to job, right?
Yeah.
You can see if they've been in sales before, and you want to talk about the tough times and that they have resilience. Those are the questions we ask. Have they been like, what was the toughest part of their current job? Like, what did you have to overcome? Did they overcome it? Like, what is their life like at home? Are they single and partying every night, or are they like,
Yeah.
do they have a family to feed? Right? Do
Mhm.
they have to make this work?
Yeah.
Those sorts of things like play into um, the type of person that will do well, because this business is pretty simple. You can train anybody to do it. Our best agents in our call centers have zero experience. I mean, no final expense experience, right? If we're a
Yeah.
final expense sales call center,
Yeah.
but they learn it like either newly licensed or just licensed, and they're some of our best agents. So if you can just not recruit everybody who fogs a mirror, or everybody who has a lead budget, or everybody who says they have the best work ethic, but really holistically look at a person and say, yeah, this guy, this guy's got it, or this girl's got it, and
Yeah.
you have those parameters, and you just and then you have a team of those people who have the same sort of you know, families, or
Yeah.
they have a lot in common, and it creates a better culture that way, instead of a bunch of mismatched sort of people of all different, anyway. So, for that to us has been key. And just it's a lot different than what you're really told out there. But we also know what it costs. Like, we're willing to spend, a certain amount of money to bring somebody in to hire, and we know that, and we're very selective on who we bring in. So
Mhm.
that's how we go about it, at least.
Yeah. Are those people in the call center, like, are they W-2 or 1099s?
They're W-2, yeah, W-2 benefits and commission.
Oh wow, okay. So benefits, and then you just bonus them on per app, or like sales volume, or how's that work?
Yeah, we pay them a commission. We pay them yeah, and the as far as like performance goes, we
Yeah.
can throttle their calls, right? They
Hmm.
work TV calls, so we can throttle their calls, or give them different, make them work missed calls if they're on a performance improvement plan, things like that. But yeah, they're all getting the same commission of just of the annual premium, and
Yeah,
we don't do any chargebacks or anything like that. We consider that our job to keep it on the books,
for
right?
sure.
Once they get the first payment in, policies in force, first payments in, then it's on us and our customer service team to keep that thing there. It's on our processes to do that, as long as they did a good button up and and teed us up, right?
Yeah.
So
No, I like that a lot. So in terms of like, I think obviously marketing has a huge effect on that, but like in terms of the sales side of a call center, right? For that you guys
yeah.
are having. Um, I'm curious, like, are you guys, if they don't hit a certain metric or KPI, then they're like, do you, how, like, incentivizing people, do you pretty much like, hey, if you hit a certain like benchmark, you get more leads or more calls, or like, and then if you don't, then you get less calls, or how's that work?
Yeah, so we're not fans of decreasing commissions, for example, or anything like that. So we know that we need to train a little bit better. So we'll spend more time with them off the phones, to train them, go through calls, listen to them together. But if somebody's not performing well and they're not hitting their metrics, they're on a performance improvement plan. And that means you're off the phones a little bit longer because you're in training and you're taking different leads. Instead of taking our TV calls, for example, you'll take our missed calls and you have to call back people who we didn't answer because we're not answering 30% of the people who call in around there. So we got to call them back.
Yeah.
And so, you're working those, you're making outbound calls instead of taking those hot inbound calls. And nobody wants to be on that. And so they'll do their best. And as long as they're giving a good presentation, they sound good, they're fixing their mistakes. And that's one thing we're really good at is we always have an 8-to-1 ratio of sales manager to 8 agents, right? So that sales manager is constantly looking at those metrics. And in our call center, right? So he can listen to every single call, he or she, and they have an iPad or tablet in front of them, and they'll patch into the call and they'll go right behind somebody once they're like hung up on something, right? They need help. And so that they can be right there with them, guide them through a map if this is their first app or through any sort of situation. And so, sales managers are really hands-on because when you have people when you're paying a salary, right?
Yeah.
W-2 and benefits, every moment counts because it's not just free leads, where you're not paying a salary or anything like that. There's a cost to that seat. It's not just what you're paying for leads, it's the hourly, it's the benefits, it's the opportunity cost, it's all that. So you
Yeah.
really need to have that oversight. And so we can, what I'm trying to say is we can get people back on track pretty quickly when
Yeah.
somebody is kind of going under metrics. And if they're not and they're not listening, then we phase them out. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, gotcha. Okay. We were talking a little bit before we started recording. Why are you more of a fan of promoting a top sales guy rather than
Yeah.
like not? Because I've heard so many, like, there's two different philosophies there, right? Like, we're like, bring the other, like, the top sales guy up into a sales manager because he's obviously got the experience, but then on the other side, they're two different personality types of from what I've heard. One, why promote them and pretty much have them oversee? That's the first question. Second question following up with that is like, they seem to be more aggressive in terms of like not like money hungry essentially, or like they're willing to go out, they have huge drives. So how do you incentivize that type of person when they're not really like crazy tied to the outcome, like they're not the actual ones selling?
Yeah, so I mean, you do have two different types of people. So when you have a really good salesperson, and number one, we like to promote them to sales management, where a lot of agencies might be like, no, no, keep them there. They're making us money, right?
Yeah.
They're killing it. You want them on the leaderboards. They're inspiring. Why would you put them in sales management when they are just inspiring people and they're making you a bunch of money? So for us, when you are doing this at scale, and that's the key here, when it's a numbers thing, when I mean at scale, when you have dozens and dozens of agents,
Yeah.
right? The smallest lift in sales percentage means way more than what
Everything.
that agent would bring. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if he can lift 8 people just from, a 25% close rate to a 26% close rate, that is massive over one guy that's doing a lot. And so when you look at it from that lens, it makes a lot more sense. But
Yeah.
I get the emotional side of it, like, oh, dude, this guy's killing it. Why would you promote? Why would you give him that option? And the thing is, a lot, some sales guys, they don't want sales management. They just
Yeah.
want to eat what they kill and do well.
Yeah.
So, but in our how we have it structured, sales managers are paid like they can make more than the best agent, like crushing their metrics, can make for their team if they can get their whole team to do it. So
I see.
yeah. What was
Okay.
the second part of that question? I forgot.
No,
I don't know if I even answered it.
well, no, yeah, you did, because there's got to be a comp plan that makes sense for them. That it pretty much like you're incentivizing them when they come in and they go and they actually move up to a sales
Yeah.
manager. They can make more than they could even if they were like the best day on the phones. Essentially,
Yep.
sounds like. So
Yep.
if you're to go back, like you have both. You have the brokerage side, you have the call center side.
Yeah.
If you were like a solo producing agent doing 30 to 50,000 a month in issue paid business, what would you like recommend them if they're wanting to really start growing an agency, knowing everything that you know now, what would you kind of say that they should do?
Look, I think I believe that growing an LOA agency is the most profitable thing that you can do if you do it right. It's the least amount of risk, even though paying for somebody's leads. But if you have a system and you're confident in what your sales process can do and what the leads you have can do, then put your money where your mouth is and go, and build an LOA team where you own that business. And if that agent ever leaves like that, you at least you own that business and you can, your team can rewrite that business when if it falls off the books, things like there's a lot of benefits to it. The brokerage side of things and what we're seeing, it's getting tough out there, man. Like the lead saturation, just leads in general, contact rates, like it's tough.
Yeah.
And for independent agents, to train an independent agent who needs to go out and pay for their own leads and just
Yeah, it's
override them,
tough.
like the brokerage model, I don't envy anybody that's doing that. If you're doing that like successfully, like hats off, guys. Like that's
Yeah.
huge. But there's also a lot of risk out there, right? So people get desperate at, when they're at the end of their budget, right? And they don't have many commissions coming in or they hit a bunch of chargebacks. And there's a lot of people that will just do uncharacteristic things, unethical things that might end up rolling up a bunch of debt to you as well. So there's risks to that as well. And when you're under a controlled uh, agency where you see everything, you're training on everything, then yeah, I would go the LOA route. And I think we're going to see a huge trend in
Yeah.
LOA agencies because
Yeah.
it's not just that, but it's the agents out there that need free lead programs out there. Yeah. And I myself, I started like, yeah, I was telling you how I was selling over the phone, but before that, I was in a call center for 2 years selling life insurance over the phone. So I was an LOA.
Yeah.
And I sold during those 2 years, I sold over 1,500 policies over the phone. Yeah, I was getting
Jeez.
paid a 20% commission, and
Yeah.
selling a crap ton of policies. But I gained my confidence. I learned so much doing that. And I think that most agents should be LOA when they start in this business. I
Yeah.
would absolutely say that. I think that's where the majority of agents should be on a free lead program to start until they can get their legs.
Yeah, it's there's so much to learn in this business, and I think it's marketed as a remote sales job when to really actually make it, it's like I went through a nightmare just my first year. It was struggle. And I if I had a free
Totally.
lead program or an LOA program, I definitely that would have helped me for sure. At least like get to I don't know, like not have to go through that. And I know a ton of other agents are not in the industry anymore because of it. Um, why go W-2 route rather than like a 1099 straight commission? You're responsible for the chargebacks, like for the independent agent is.
So why W-2 like in-house rather than just a free lead LOA program
Yeah,
is
like
what you're
sending
saying?
people
Like the
free
remote?
leads, they're responsible 1099. Like they're responsible, it's full commission. And like why go more the base plus commission route? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So when you have, I mean, you can only like legally, you can only exert a certain amount of control over what somebody like when you tell somebody they have to be in a certain place at a certain time and do certain things, you're really walking the line of a employee employer relationship. And all it
Yeah.
takes is one person to blow the whistle and just bring you down. And when you're, I see why agencies do that, and you can get away with it if you're operating, 10, 15, 20 agents maybe, and just kind of run that risk. But if you're telling people where they need to be, and you have all this control, yeah, you are not doing it legally. And you have to do it that way. So yeah, that's the big reason is there's a lot of agencies out there walking the line, and cool, like, to each their own, and they're probably going to be fine. Like if somebody blows the whistle, they're probably got some things in place on the back end that will cover them. But that's just not the route that we wanted to go.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's really it. And when you have a call center, and we're brick and mortar, like you
Yeah.
can't pay somebody 1099. So it was
Why not
W-2.
remote? Like why like in-person call center um rather than like a remote like work from home type thing?
The oversight. So like I mentioned before, we have that sales manager that's
Yeah.
just there, right? You have that culture building. You have like in-person training is a lot different than remote training. And showing up and being in a spot instead of just rolling into your bedroom or your home office or whatever it is with your t-shirt and shorts and your hair from last night, and getting going, but just the process of getting ready for the day and showing up and being around people. And it's one thing to be in your office and selling, but to be around other people making sales and bringing you up when you're on a low streak, and feeling that, not just seeing it in Slack or whatever your message system is, but feeling it in the room and hearing people making sales when you're not really feeling it, because we all have those days, right? And
Yeah.
that's really the like there's a lot to it there. And yeah, just I you when you if you're building like a smaller LOA, I can see doing that and it working great remotely, right?
Yeah.
10, 20, 30 agents, like you can probably make that work really well and be super profitable. And probably that's really all you need, honestly. You can find a good nucleus of 5 to 10 LOA agents that you guys are crushing it. I mean, that's as big as many agents need to go and make a
Yeah.
killer amount of money. Like I've seen it. And agents with 10 LOAs doing really well, profits are insane. So and that's perfectly fine. But for us, right, we have goals that we want to hit. We're trying to get to 180 agents in the seat in the next 18 months. So and so with that, we need oversight. We can't have leaks. We have to have that. So
Yeah. No, that's good. What are common mistakes that people want starting like an LOA program make um and just lead to not much success?
yeah, just not knowing the math, not owning their lead source. I've seen, lead sources just run dry. Whether they could just, let's say, just they're doing Facebook leads, for example. Maybe their Facebook account gets banned, or the guy that was running the ads for them, you know, disappears.
Yeah.
Or it just the lead cost ends up going up. Like that stuff will break an LOA business, right? So you really got to diversify your leads, number one. You have to have a sales process that works, and you really need to monitor people. Like that is the big thing. So
Yeah.
there's a piece of technology that we use that I would absolutely recommend if you are doing LOA telesales. We use well, there's a few of them out there, but we use something called Balto. Um, and it lets you QA score calls in real time. And it listens to all the calls basically, and it's giving you a ton of insights. And you know, you're not going to be able to grade every single agent's call. When you're LOA, every single lead that you're buying for your agents is important, right?
Yeah.
There's effort that went into generating it. There's opportunity costs that if you didn't close it, if somebody's not giving a full presentation, or they're not really being, they're cutting corners, or they're not really into it, like that is a cost to you, right? And so you can catch that if you have those systems in place. Balto is one of the things that we use to monitor agents on every single phone call and look at their QA scores on every call in real time, and also be able to listen in our sales managers, and you can do this remotely too, listen in to calls. Like you have a dashboard of your team and you see, okay, there, this guy's on for 15 minutes. Okay, he's probably getting into rates. Let's listen in here. You can whisper in and things like that. So that's like,
I like that.
you need to be able to monitor. So if you're starting an LOA program, you need to be able to monitor, you need to diversify your leads. Obviously, you have to have something where the math works, right? You've tested this before, you see it happening consistently over time, and that it's scalable. Because I know a lot of agencies that have LOA models, and they know where their cap is. They know they can only get to 5 agents, 15 agents, because this is as many leads as they can generate at this price point that makes sense. So, like, if you have the math down and you have the oversight, because that's really important. A lot of the LOA programs fail because agents that are working these free leads, they don't appreciate them as much as you do, who you're fronting it.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to, in real time, to do that. And being remote, that's tough. So you got to have some oversight systems. I see people like having Zoom rooms open the whole time, and so everybody's on Zoom making dials. And if you're not on Zoom, like, where are you? Right? That's part of being in their agency. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I like that a lot. So Balto being able to do that. Um, as it like if you're wanting to start as a brand new life insurance agent, you're like on your own. Um, I guess like let me get to bring it up a little bit, like a higher level thing. What are the people doing 30 to $50,000 a month consistently in issue paid business? What are the characteristics that you see them or traits that they have that they have that other people don't, that fail out? Or what are
Okay,
they doing that others aren't?
I'll give it to you on the independent side and on the call center agent side. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So independent agents who are doing $30,000 to $50,000 a month, they realize that this is an imperfect business and they accept it,
Yeah.
right? You have bogus leads, you have people not answering phones, you have chargebacks, you have hangups, you have all that stuff. It's all part of the business, it's all part of the plan. You're going to have it. Everybody has it. The top guys to the bottom guys, they all experience it. Everyone, right?
Yeah.
No business is perfect, including this one, right? But if you let all that stuff get to you, you won't go very far. And
Mm.
once you realize that it's an imperfect business and you accept that and you realize that the only way to smooth over those imperfections is consistent activity, and obviously making sure you're getting better every day, then like that's what I see between those independent agents that are $30,000 to $50,000 producers. They realize it's an imperfect business and it doesn't bother them. They don't get
Yeah.
affected by it. In our call centers, you don't have that. You don't
Yeah.
feel the chargebacks, somebody hangs up or doesn't answer a phone or it's a bogus lead. You don't care, right? It's not, no skin off your back. You didn't pay for that lead. So, for in our call centers, and this is what we really train on, is being mission driven, right? So if you're here to protect families and, and basically don't let the person on the other end of the line let their family down, and you have that mentality,
Mm.
and you feel like a sense of compassionate disappointment in yourself for letting the other person's family down, when you have that full presentation, you think of the other person on the other side of the line. That's what we try and instill internally every single day, right? Because it results in conviction in your voice, pushing harder without sounding so salesy. And the agents who focus on like turning leads into commissions, right? They have their minds that, like, that's their mindset at their core. They tend to be the most dissatisfied, right? When things go wrong, they have the highest failure rate because things will go wrong. With their sales is streaky, right? You're gonna have sales streaks. So for us, it's just internally, if you're mission driven, you really care about what
Like
you're
that.
doing. That's, to us, that's where we see the biggest producers in our call center.
Yeah. How do you like keep success, like sales success in your call centers? Like like how do pretty much how do you like train these guys to be one killers, but then also like the longevity of their career?
So your target earnings need to be good, right? you need to make money. So with us, within 90 days, if you're not making at least 80 grand, like targeting
On rate.
monthly to be 80
Yeah.
grand a year, yeah, you're gone. Like you're fired. So um, you know, the upside needs to be good. And so
Yeah.
your on target earnings need to be 80. Like for us, we have 80 to 130 grand. Is agents can definitely do higher, if they're beasts. But the like if and we found there's a good mix of very satisfied people in that range, right? Less than that, they're looking for other opportunities. And even if they are profitable for you, a little bit profitable, if they're in sales and they're making less than 80 grand a year, they're going to look at another sales job at some point. So if you can keep them between that 80 to 130 and there's people hitting that 130 and they see that and they're like, that keeps people long term. Obviously, culture is a big part of it, mission's a big part of it. But I would say to retain somebody that's good, I mean, if they're coming in, working their 8 hours a day and going home and not having to worry about the stresses that we all worry about with our agencies, like that is a good, solid life for most people out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but
Yeah.
for people like us, it's definitely not something that we definitely would
No.
do. But that's what was, I feel like for me it's been the biggest thing that I feel like I've unlocked a little bit more, like the belief of for me, I'm like, dude, why not just go if you could do 30 to 50,000 on free leads, why not just go to the broker side? Like how has your I don't know if you ever faced that, but like how did your view like change, or if it never did, like what's kind of your thought process with that? Because that's kind of my thought, I guess.
So are you worried about like your strongest, your best
Strongest guys
LOA
leaving
agents
because they know
going?
they can make more.
Okay. So yeah, I mean that's the concern for anyone out there, right?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest. When I was at the call center, I left because I went independent, right? I
Yeah.
did exactly what you're talking about. I left and made more money as an independent agent once I figured out, oh, this is what you actually make in commissions. So I mean, it's a risk, and you're going to have people that will leave you, and you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And and the thing is, like it's are they actually going to make that money though? We found a lot of people that leave other call centers like a select quote that come to us for like brokerage. They don't do as well here
Mm.
because they don't have that management of cash flow, right?
Yep.
Or they don't understand how that works. It's not as simple as just buying leads and and turning an ROI out that. So, I just have to accept that, a lot of, not a lot, but some of your top performers in LOA will eventually leave. And that's just part of the business.
Yeah.
And yeah,
No, that's good. Well, Jeff, appreciate your time coming on here. Thank you so
yeah,
much for hopping on here. Super valuable for me, but then also other people listening as well. Where can they kind of like follow you, or kind of go to your YouTube? That they definitely need to check that out. Where can they find that?
yeah. On YouTube, Digital BGA. Type in that, give us a subscribe, and you'll see a bunch of our content on there.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for hopping on here. Appreciate your time. Guys, if
Cool.
you haven't already
Thanks, buddy.
subscribed right now, like this, drop in the comments what you guys are taking from it. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.